Let me begin by introducing myself. I'm Dave Donnelly, Dean of the School of Communications. And I'm going to turn the floor over to Tom Gillespie, who will introduce our guest this afternoon. Tom is fairly new, joined us as the director of the Interactive Communications graduate program. You may know we have a master's in interactive communications, and we just launched an online-only version of the interactive communications program. And we brought Tom in from Indiana University. There, Tom had started the MIME program, which stands for Masters in Immersive Media Environments, correct? Okay, so I will introduce Tom, and he will introduce his former student, Monica Hendon, our guest today. So, Tom?
I'm Tom. Obviously, Monica was a student about 4 or 5 years ago back at Indiana University. I have no idea exactly how I met Monica, but I most remember Monica in a 3D modeling class that I had, where she did this bizarre modeling final exercise where the person's working at a computer, and she took the idea of the dog ate my homework to the idea of the person typing at a computer at a certain point in time. The character gets tired and falls asleep on the keyboard, and out of the computer hands come and takes the woman's head, pops it off and pulls it back in there. wasn't your normal type of 3D, but Monica's not your normal type of person. Monica also, when she was at IU, she took off a term and did an internship at Disney for a term, and then she did won one of the IRTS scholarships. I don't know if folks know about the IRTS scholarships. This is the International Radio Television Society. Yeah, these are very, very cool scholarships to get. You can't get them by just having good grades in lots of classes. You get them by having good grades in lots of classes and doing interesting things, thus spending a term at Disney doing something that she probably could have gotten more out of it, but going outside the box. And so that brought her into New York City. And I know she's going to be talking about what she's doing now, but for me, the more interesting thing about Monica is how she started her company. Because she went from a company that she worked for and she created her own company, and she's now working. So, Monica?
Thank you. It actually, the 3D project was it was our final project at the end of the year, and I don't even remember what I was initially trying to make it do, but it kept crashing and taking my project, and I got so angry that I just made the project what I felt like was happening in my life, which was the computer ripping my head off. So that was not what it was supposed to be, but that was at anger at like 2 in the morning. That's how that turned into that. But anyways, hi, nice to meet you all. Thank you for having me here. As Tom said, I went to Indiana University. I graduated in 2002 and then went to New York directly afterwards on an IRTS fellowship, which if any of you are interested in a good path into getting into the industry in New York, that's a great thing to look into, irts.org. We have a summer fellowship program that sets you up, houses you for the summer, gives you an internship somewhere fantastic, and introduces you to all sorts of people in the industry, which is unbelievable. So anyways, that's how I got started. To begin, just a quick kind of how I got to where I am, because that always interested me when I was in school, because I never understood exactly how people made careers in the industry. After my fellowship, I worked at Gray Advertising for a while through my internship, and then got a position at a small production company doing promos. And that was fantastic because it was a small company, so I was able to do all sorts of things, which I think is an amazing experience as opposed to going to a large corporation where you do your one thing and you're not really allowed to step outside of that box. So I got to work with editors, I got to work with producers, I got to shoot and really get involved in the company, and moved up there, and then eventually met one of the creative directors of the company. He and I got very tight in working on projects, and when the company rebranded, they kind of wanted to go in another direction with the projects, and they were basically kind of severing relationships with a lot of their clients, who were our friends and who hired us to do exciting work. What we thought was exciting work, so we took them and started our own company, Wee Beastie, which is where I am today. We've been around for almost 3 years now, and we do advertising for cable networks. I think when I was in school and shortly after, and my friends and I, we were all in production, and to me that meant you make TV shows or you make movies. And I realized there was more to it than that, but I didn't really know what else there was. And then my internship obviously introduced me to advertising. Of course, we all know commercials. I never really thought about them much, like that people made them or had to figure them out. And then from there, I got into promos, which is basically everything that runs during commercial break that isn't a commercial. So there's the Bounty ad, and then there's a promo for tonight on 24 or what have you. That's a promo. The first one's a commercial, the second one's a promo. And within promos, there's all sorts of different things. What my company does mainly are launch campaigns, co-branded ad sales campaigns, and a lot of upfront kind of sales tapes, which I'll explain those kind of 3 categories. We really strive to shoot everything we do. A lot of promos are clips of shows like Tonight on 24. We try to stay away from that stuff because we think it's boring. We like to get a concept, create scripts, go out there, shoot them. My partner's a director, so he directs everything we do. Go out in the field, shoot everything, bring it back, edit it, do the graphics, whatever, it depends on the project, and then deliver it so it goes on air. So in that way, we get to do some really exciting things instead of just writing copy over a bunch of clips of shows, which gets boring after a while. David asked me to kind of just show some of my work and explain what we do. So as I said, there's kind of 3 main categories of what we do. So the first two spots I have up here, Property Ladder and Table for 12, these are both spots we did for launches. Coincidentally, not realizing it until this moment, they're both for TLC, which is a big client of ours, yet not our only one. Property Ladder's from about 2 years ago, TLC's from about a month ago. The show just launched in March. And it was a fabulous turnout on its first night, which is huge for us. We're not in charge of keeping them there, we're just in charge of getting them there for the first episode. So both of them are concepts that we got. Basically, there was a show, and they said, we really want to bring people to air, do something different that people might actually pay attention to in the commercial break. So this first one, Property Ladder, it's a house flipping show. I don't think it's on TLC anymore, but it was all about flipping houses.
Flip or flop? Find out on the new season of Property Ladder, Saturdays at 8 on TLC.
So that's Property Ladder, basically our concept, obviously, flipping houses, but you might go too far. That's the whole idea of the show. Again, our idea with that was just let's make something that people may pause the TiVo for, which I think might happen sometimes. I do it, but then again, it's my job to pay attention to commercial breaks. But that was that one we loved. We shot that in a green screen studio with all the talent, and then did everything in After Effects and Maya. And I'm embarrassed to say I don't actually know. We actually got some press for it was a new bit of software in Maya that our 3D guys used. That was brand new. It was really big to create those houses ballooning. It was a new technique. So they were very excited. So and then the second one is. We just shot this in February 16th, the day that will live in infamy. We shot with a family of 10 children. 6 of them were 4-year-olds.
This house, we don't always laugh and smile. Our home, find a way to make it our place. There's lots of us, it's true. Our place in the middle of the sunshine. This house, we'll figure out a way. Our home, try to make the day count.
The premiere of Table for 12, following the season finale of John and Kate Plus 8. Monday, March 23rd at 10, only on TLC.
So that new show on TLC, they came to us and said, everyone loves John and Kate Plus 8. I'm sure at least some of you know of that show. Yeah. It's a huge show and oddly addicting, even if you don't like children in any way. It's just a little bit of a freak show, and you have to watch it. So they found this family, the Hayes family, with, oh my gosh, 2 more children than John and Kate have, so it's even better. But they came to us saying, we have this family, and we said, the family is, this is what everyone cares about. Let's show this family and show how they interact and how family of 12 total work. So that was shot with a motion control rig, which is basically this giant computer that you put the camera on and you set it to do the same exact move over and over and over again. So that big giant move we did around that table, the same exact move we did for 10 hours. so that then we are able to layer the different videos and there's no jumps of any kind. And so we just shot, because you can't tell kids, especially that many and that age, what to do. So we just shot them doing all sorts of different things, gave them all sorts of different stimuli, and tried to get a bit of a story out of it, of what this family does on a day-to-day. So those are basically launch campaigns. Here's a new show, here's something really cool, watch it. And so far we've had a pretty good track record of getting people to the first show. This second one, Piano Player, this is one of the few not-for-air projects that we did. Within the networks, they have to go out, and excuse me if this is elementary, I'm not sure how much you guys know about it. I didn't really know about much of this stuff when I got into the industry. The networks every year go out and they sell their programming to advertisers. They do what's called upfronts, and they put on a big show, bring all their talent out, they show clips of their upcoming shows, and they show how amazing their network's going to be that year. And then hopefully Kraft and Coca-Cola and Clorox and everyone else will sit down with their sales guys the next day and write them a big check for all their advertising for that year. And on the whole, 70 to 80% of advertising for the year is based on a network's upfront presentation. And then along with the giant presentation, then their sales guys go on the road for the next 2 months and hit more people that weren't at the presentation with some videos that they show in presentations like this. We're so great, look at what we do. So Discovery came to us. Basically every video that these guys ever show, not just Discovery, all the networks, it's clips of their shows. Discovery came to us and said, we want to be more creative. We want to show Clorox that we think outside the box. We don't just show them programming. We want to be creative. Basically, that was our brief. Make us look creative. So we came up with this idea that we call the Piano Player, and they took this on the road and showed it to people to get them to buy advertising.
Let yourself down. Your last chance has arrived. Best, you've got to be the best. You've got to change the world and use this chance.
When it seems impossible, when someone tells you it can't be done, there's always a solution. Discovery Solutions. Some people think outside the box. For us, there is no box.
So basically, in their meetings, their hope was that guys that had been just sitting through HGTV's meeting and watched a bunch of home improvement clip shows, or clips, a tape with these clips, would go in, walk in, waiting to see Discovery's clips and see that and go, oh, these guys are different. They catch people's attention. They just caught my attention. I want to give them my dollars because they'll figure out how to get my, our consumers' attention. And you'll notice that was Muse. That was a popular song at the time, which we generally cannot do on air because that's tens and thousands of dollars to make a deal with any sort of popular music. And promos generally doesn't have that kind of budget. So when we do something that's not for air, we can play around with more interesting music, which is nice. And then third, which is kind of taking that idea a little further, the majority of what we've been doing over the last couple years, we've kind of become experts in our co-branded spots, which is a huge thing that advertisers have been doing for the last 5 years, really pretty heavily. They know consumers are smart enough that commercials are boring. Duh, no one wants to watch commercials. Everyone thinks commercials are horrible. So they have to get their ideas across. So they think that, and hopefully it works, that consumers will be more interested and more willing to listen to something if it's paired with something that they trust, like Discovery Channel, like the Travel Channel or HGTV or whoever. If you have a show that you trust and love and a host or a personality from that, also pairing with this commercial brand, and saying, you know, I'm Stacy London and I like Macy's. It's cheesy, but it's a way to get their attention at first. And if you do it correctly, it might actually work. So something that we've gotten really good at, we like to say, are combining two brands. And that's also a really difficult thing in 30 seconds to get two brands across, to make both brands happy and somehow make it interesting as well. Because everyone has these brands that no one can touch. You can't change it, you can't hurt it anyway, and somehow you have to figure out how to make them work together. So our first, actually I'm gonna end with the last week. Trading Spaces Home Depot, we did this actually a couple years ago. It's still one of my favorite things that we did. The idea was, hey, I watch Trading Spaces, and so I'm gonna work on my home and go to Home Depot to make that work. So we kind of created an everyman and this guy named Bill to kind of sell both. Have people tune into Trading Spaces, but also go to Home Depot.
Meet Bill. Bill watches Trading Spaces. Bill is pretty handy around the house. He likes to do his own home improvement. So when Bill sees something he likes on Trading Spaces, he goes right to the Home Depot to get the tools to get the job done. Bill is a man who knows what he wants. Be like Bill. Shake up your space with ideas from Trading Spaces. Then get what you need at the Home Depot. You can do it. We can help.
So that was kind of a quirky thing, a nod to the viewer. Obviously, this is a commercial. Obviously, we're being sold to by Home Depot. But hopefully, you can somewhat relate to Bill, or at least think him kind of funny, and realize, okay, I was sold to, but that was creative, and I kind of like Home Depot because I feel like I'm kind of in with them a little. We're buddies now. And then this next one, Geico National Geographic, we just did this in November, and this was a very difficult one because National Geographic Channel is very clear on who they are. They are about information and education and the pursuit of knowledge. And Geico is nonsense. And we had to combine the two, which was really difficult. Nat Geo actually came to us with scripts that were appalling. And we had to nicely say, this is a mess. Not only do we not want to do these because they're horrible, but no one's going to like them. So it was a process. We actually ended up driving down to DC one day to meet with them face to face and say, what are you trying to do? Because this doesn't make sense. What is it that you want? And then figure out from them what they wanted and then come up with ideas of how to get that done. Their main thing, they came to us and said, we need to use this talent, Brady Barr, because he's a reptile expert. And we need to talk about geckos and something about zoos. We were like, what? What are you talking about? So we finally figured out a way to make something educational and trustworthy, but a little offbeat as well.
Why Humans Can't Be Geckos with Dr. Brady Barr, host of Dangerous Encounters.
Unlike humans, male geckos can attract females by bobbing their heads and wagging their tails. Smooth.
Luckily, you don't have to be a gecko to save money with Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
So we did a series of, I think 4 of those. One was a kid trying to lick his eyeball. One, those were my 2 favorite. Anyways, and Geico was incredibly happy, and we're actually right now in the process of brainstorming a whole new campaign for them, which was great. And it makes our clients look great, and everyone's happy. And then taking this co-branded idea even further, as you see, everything we do is 30-second spots. We basically do commercials. But Discovery Channel came to us at the end of the year and said, we have Alaska Week coming up in April, and we're doing a co-branded campaign with Kraft, with a cereal brand of theirs. And they did something similar last year. They said, sent a bunch of people up to Alaska and had them, compete. And someone won a trip to Hawaii, and that was it. And they ate cereal while they were there. And it wasn't very good. But I saw what they were trying to do, and again, I was talking to Tom about this earlier. you know, when you're watching TV and there's real people that are doing their thing, it's reality, and all of a sudden they're like, pass me the box of cereal, and you see like the perfect angled shot. You're like, oh my God, that's so bad, especially when it's not even an actor and it's someone that's just even worse. They're pretending. It's just not good. So we worked with Discovery Channel and Kraft and came up with an idea that was more extreme, more focused on Discovery's idea of Alaska, that extreme adventure side, while we really pushed them and said, instead of making them eat cereal throughout the day and we organically see a nutritious breakfast, which you do see a little bit of, let's make it more of a sponsored event, more like a sporting event where you see banners around, they have the logo on their backs, and we just acknowledge it, say you guys are the brand of this, but what you're doing is giving the viewers the chance to see something really cool, and therefore we like you, and in your mind you're a good brand. Instead of saying, oh, those guys eating that cereal in that tent, that looks really good, I want to try it, because no one does that, that's nonsense. So we do fight as much as we can back, not fight, but push. There is some, gratuitous cereal eating scenes, but overall I think we did a pretty good job of staying true to Discovery's brand. I will ask you, this actually hasn't aired yet, though I don't think Discovery is going to freak out about anything like this, but this is airing in 2 weeks, so just keep that in mind. Also, it's a rough. We have our editor's voice is doing the voiceover, and it's not completely mixed, so it's still a little rough, but I just ask you, while you're all doing your blogs, just kidding, but, just whatever.
4 adventurers take on the Alaskan wilderness.
I'm from Pittsburgh. I worked inside all day. Really wanted to do some traveling outside.
In Texas, I'm used to the heat, and this is the exact opposite. I live in Santa Monica, California, but I am a travel and outdoor freak.
I'm looking forward to getting out of New Jersey and experiencing this beautiful country.
Who will win the Trail Mix Crunch Cereal Alaskan Adventure Challenge?
Welcome to Alaska. You guys awake this morning? Ready to start your adventure?
Yes.
Every day you are going to hike until you come to an Alaskan-sized challenge. You are going to compete with each other head to head. Whoever wins the most events gets an all-expense-paid trip to Hawaii. Breakfast is waiting for you. Go over the map. You got 30 minutes, and I need you back out here ready to go. All right, good luck. Let's go.
So we got 16 miles to go today.
And it looks like we're going to be going through the woods.
Yeah.
Maybe there's something in the trees that we can't see.
Yeah,
I'm gonna get some of this before we hit this hike.
Yeah, you can get me some too.
Yeah, you better make sure you eat enough
I
of this
know.
so you have the energy to get through this, because we should probably get rolling on this.
Hey, there they are. Good breakfast. Everybody ready to go?
Yep.
Oh, yes.
So let's get out of here.
Our contestants face hours of grueling skiing across hostile terrain.
Let's do this.
Before they even reach the starting line of the first event, stamina is going to be a big factor.
Does anyone see where we're going?
Congratulations on making it here. Now, competition begins. This is your first event. It's a downhill ski. All 4 of you go down at the same time. Whoever crosses the finish line first wins the day. You ready?
Ready.
Ready.
Good luck. I'll see you down there.
Okay.
They are tired and exhausted, but now it's time for their first challenge, a head-to-head race down an old logging road, full of ruts and hidden dangers.
Ready, set, go!
In this challenge, it's speed that counts. The road narrows quickly, so whoever makes it to the bottleneck first will be the one to beat, if they can stay on their skis.
Here he comes. It's Chris. Looking good. Woo! Here she comes, Erin. Yes. Guys, where's Chad? Did we lose Chad somewhere on the course? Somebody pushed Chad off the cliff? Ski patrol went out looking for him, but there he is. All right, guys, well done. Chris, you take the first event of the competition. We got a busy day, though, so get the skis back on. Point yourselves that way, because we're not done. Let's go.
One event down and everyone is exhausted and cold. Will they make it to the next challenge, or will the Alaskan winter win the day? Find out online at discovery.com/Alaska Week and get a chance to win your own Alaskan adventure.
So basically, the idea behind that is every night during Alaska Week is basically a programming block during prime time for a week on Discovery Channel. All the programs have something to do with Alaska. So one commercial break each night. The full 3 minutes is devoted to an episode of this. So Kraft purchased the entire commercial break each night. And so every night we see a different challenge happen, and there's added value stuff online. They can go and see these little conclusions. Why is Chris so angry at the cliffhanger, and those sorts of things, and learn more about the contestants. And we also have diary cam stuff on online, all those sorts of things. And as you saw, the lower third popped up for a while, like, you're watching the Alaska Adventure Challenge, stay tuned for Alaska Week. That was something they just added last week because they were like, we're worried people won't know that they're not watching a show, that this is a commercial break. So it's all those kind of little reminders that we want people to feel like they're being entertained, but this is definitely an added value thing. So that's the idea behind Alaska Week, and hopefully you guys will tune in to see who wins. So exciting. And that was, we spent 2 weeks in Alaska shooting that, which was definitely the most interesting and difficult experience that we've ever had. But yeah, that was basically it. We flew, I think, 15 to 20 people from all over the lower 48 to Alaska. And then I hired a bunch of locals as well and shot out there for 2 weeks. And one night we're hit by a 3-foot blizzard and all sorts of interesting experiences. So I was telling, I think I told you this, the ski race down the old logging road actually was supposed to be down a glacier. It was going to be really badass. We were going to helicopter them in and drop them down. And then we got a 3-foot blizzard, and they were like, well, we could helicopter them in, but they will land in way steep snow and not go anywhere. So I don't know how good TV, how great that is, but they're literally going to be like climbing down the glacier. So we instead found a road. But you do these things, and so yeah. So that's pretty much what we do. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Yeah, I'll start, Monica, while they're gathering their thoughts. We've heard quite frequently that the advertising model is, business models are having issues, problems. The traditional advertising model may or may not be broken. Do you think this Alaska Week idea, this notion of advertising as content beyond 30 seconds, beyond 60 seconds, do you think that's an idea that's going to take off, or the way it's linked to the web?
I think it's an interesting idea. It's a lot of money, which I think is not going to happen, at least for a while. People are obviously, as we all know, tightening their belts on everything. I mean, to buy an entire commercial break during prime time, even on a cable network, is a ton of money. So the longer form, I'm not so sure about. I think that the 30-second ones are really more what we're going to stay seeing. I don't know. That's just a guess. I also think just seeing everyone's reaction, you can sell someone on this co-branded thing kind of tongue-in-cheek in 30 seconds much better than 3 minutes, because we're smart. And you instantly, within 3 minutes, start finding the flaws, and you start mocking it, and you start acknowledging that you're being sold to and you don't like it. And so I think it's a lot more effective the shorter it is, because you have less time to get annoyed with it. So yeah, that being said, I think the 30-second is stronger than the 3-minute, and I don't think we'll see as much 3-minute, if anything, just because of money. The tie to
money for the airtime.
For the airtime, exactly.
What about these experiments where brands are putting things on YouTube? They're create Skittles is kind of an infamous example.
Right, or allowing people to create their own advertising. That's interesting. I think everyone's so eager to have user-generated content because everyone's so interested. Everyone's making their own stuff. But it's crap on TV. When you turn on TV, you want to see something professional. And there are ways to do it. I mean, the Doritos stuff for the Super Bowl, which I think you guys talked about in class, or maybe you're going to. But they were good. It was clearly semi-professionals or professionals doing that, submitting those things. I think user-generated content is interesting, but people don't want to see that, I don't think, on a broadcast network. They want to see something that's polished and trustworthy. And I think it's funny for advertisers, because so many brands want to branch out and try new things, but then they freak out at the last minute. What was the car company? Was it GMC that, I forgot off the top of my head, that like 2 years ago had people make commercials for their trucks and submit them online, and half of them were just a mess. They were, you know, shouting at them, telling them how horrible they were, and it kind of backfired, although I believe they're the ones that kept them up, which was kind of interesting. It kind of made you respect them, that they stuck to their thing and said, okay, we told you guys to say what's on your mind, so say it. But a lot of stuff, you know, or a lot of things, a lot of brands aren't willing to let anyone say anything negative. So if you're not going to let the people say what they want to say, what's the point in allowing it? So I think it's happening. If it's gonna, I don't think it's like what we're gonna end up seeing more and more on air, online things somewhat. But I think most of these brands are nervous to let anyone really touch their brand. From my experience, there's very little willingness. As much as they see when it actually comes down to doing things, they're not willing to let people touch it.
Related to that, I was wondering if there's maybe sort of a sense of dumbing down of quality that people are okay with. I'm thinking in terms like I have a 13-year-old son, and I look at what he's doing online, and I'm thinking like he really doesn't care about nice things on television.
Right.
If it looks like YouTube, he's gonna like it.
It's true. And you never know. I mean, we still look at the children's programming, what's on air right now, and again, I'm not a child, and I don't work for a specific children's network, so I can't act as an expert for them, but we just did a bunch of concepting this past week for Disney XD, which was Toon Disney up until February. And so we kept thinking like YouTube style stuff, or what stuff kids are really gonna like, but we're watching everything that's on this air, and it's beautiful. It might be a kid on a skateboard with like graffiti behind him, and it's very urban looking, but it's beautiful. It's nothing that a kid would ever be able to make. So I think, again, I don't know, I think that children are probably a lot more open to different levels of quality because they've seen it now, but I still feel like that there's a huge difference between the internet and the television. And what they're seeing on TV, they want to see something that looks good. That's my belief. And I think that's what the networks are. I don't see networks being willing to put something on. I mean, there's those the Sonic ads that I think do that really well. But you see, do you know those ads where it looks like there's like a camera kind of in the footwell and the people are just having a stupid conversation, and it's just kind of nonsense, but it works really well. And I've seen a ton of people try and recreate them online, and they look horrible. You can tell non-professionals made them, and yet the professional one looks like it was made by amateurs, but it wasn't. There's still a clear difference, and I think that's the difference. People are willing to show that grungy look, but they're still having professionals do it and make it still look professional in a way.
When you're trying to come up with a campaign or some ideas, what's a typical brainstorming session like?
We have our staff, we have 5 people on staff, so it's always at least the 5 of us, and then generally any freelancers that we have in the office we'll try and pull in. So we have some designers or editors working on stations, we'll pull them in as well. Depending on the project, sometimes we'll pull in some other people that are experts in certain things. I have a good friend that's an expert in interactivity and online ideas, so we'll bring her in. And even if we're not looking for an online idea, we'll bring her in because she just brings another idea to the table. And we just sit and think. No one is allowed to shoot anything down, which is hard. I'm the money girl, and I know that we have a budget of X, and someone comes up with this idea that's insane, and I want to say, we can't afford that. No, but no, you don't say anything. Just throw out anything, write it all down, just think of ideas, and even if they're not completely formulated, throw it out and let, maybe someone else can formulate, come up with something from that. But our big thing is you never say no to anything in that first session. Don't come up with any reason why it wouldn't work. And that's mainly it. And we work for about an hour and a half maybe, and then there's a clear lull, and everyone just kind of spent, and so we walk away, done, stop, get lunch, whatever. And then a day or two later, if we have the time, if we have enough time to have that much space between it, then we come back and we revisit. And the clear, stronger ones stand out, and so we start talking about those some more, And then after about another hour and a half, we kind of divvy up. It's obvious from those conversations then who's more passionate about the different ideas. We divvy it up and get everyone spends another day just on their own, really writing up the concept and figuring out what exactly the story is with the concept. And then we bring them all together again, read them to each other, comment on them, how we think they could be better, or if you got stuck on the one you're writing, I'm not sure what happens at the end or what have you, but still all concept, all story-based, no scripts at all. And then from that, we finalize our concepts and then send them to our clients as that. We don't send scripts at all in the first. Even if they ask for it, we say no, we will not write a script at first, because that's instant death to a concept.
So the concept, what form? It's a little short description of the story?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm trying to think of what, of one of these that we did strong concepting for. Well, okay, our latest, like I said, Geico National Geographic just came to us again and said, we loved the last campaign, we want to do another one sometime this year. Basically, National Geographic said, we're about to go to Geico and try and convince them to hire us again this year. But we want to go to them with a really strong idea that they want to buy into. So, open-ended, come up with an idea. Instead of, like last time, they came to us with this talent and scripts. They said, do whatever you want. Here's a list of all of our programming we're doing this year, all of our specials. Come up with anything you want. And so we just sat around and thought, okay, what do these shows have, what do we know about Geico's advertising? There's the gecko, there's the cavemen, there's the little pile of money right now, all those standard things. And then just the concepts they have of trust, saving, and how do those relate to some of National Geographic's programming and also just their core values, saving. So one of our ideas was, we have National Geographic talent talking about points in their careers where they needed saving. Something about like, oh, I was in the wild and my leg was caught in a crevasse, however you say it, and I needed saving, something like that. And how do you connect that to saving? Or some of our other ideas, there's a caveman on set for a National Geographic documentary shoot that's about Neanderthals, and he's he's sitting there and he's the consultant, and he gets so pissed and he's like, did you even research your role? What are you doing? He yells at them. So it's really just how can we come up with two ideas or an idea for each of the brands that makes them work, and they're not always completely formulated. That's really kind of better written than what I just said, but what we go to them with, and we give them 15, 20 ideas, and then they say, I like 1, 4, and 7, dig in a little deeper, and we'll do another session and dig into those deeper, and then probably around round 3 we'll start writing scripts. So that, it's really just a base concept of, we think this would be cool, and then you go from there. If they think it's cool, then you figure out if it's actually doable.
Have you found yourself in a situation with a client where you really like one concept or one story and they're not buying it, and you end up kind of, this is the one that you prefer, they don't prefer it and you really want to push it?
One of the things we really pride ourselves in is not being precious. We like to think that people come to us because we're the experts in things. At the same time, these people know their network. And it's very easy, just like with anyone. I mean, these guys are our bosses. Just like with any boss, you're like, oh my God, he has no idea what he's talking about. I'm so much smarter. I know this. But ultimately, you have to say this person's in this position for a reason. And so we may think this is much better idea or this, but really, if they're choosing from our concepts, anything we present them, we feel is a strong idea and will work. They're ones we like better than others, but ultimately, if they choose one that they think is going to be best, we go with it because it's what they think will work for their network. And since we work for 15 networks at a time, we can never, ever pretend that we know someone's network better than they do, and that's their baby. So generally, we let them do what they want because ultimately they know. Yeah.
How do you find these clients and their projects? Do you have sales reps, or does someone from like National Geographic come to you and say, oh, hey, we have this great project, can you help us out with this?
Yes, that's what they do, but we have relationships with them. We did actually have a sales rep for a while, and it almost killed us because we stopped doing our own sales. And when you stop doing that, we learned as a small business, no one cares about your business as much as you do. And our sales rep was fantastic, but she just wasn't bringing in the work. And to her, it was just, oh, I'm not going to get my percentage this month. But to us, it was, oh, we can't pay the rent this month. And so you care a lot more in generating. And really, for a small business, you're selling your product. You have to do good things. But really, they're hiring us. They're hiring my business partner and I. It's a personal thing. So they might meet my rep, but they're not working with her. They don't know her. They don't care about her. So we learned a valuable lesson last year. And we went back out, and we really, it's sales trips constantly. Next week, we're going down to DC for a week, and we're just seeing all of our clients out there, taking people for lunch, hanging out, and then we're going to LA the next week. And really, for us, it's hard to get new clients. And what the best way we found is to really take care of our current ones, and they're really our friends. We make them feel like they're our friends, and we consider them that. We try not to be two-faced in that way. We take them to lunch, and we hang out, we talk, we gossip. We're not just like, hey, check out this deck of this amazing work we do. Don't bring that salesy junk. They don't want to hear that. They get that all the time. They want to work with people that they do good work and are interesting and fun, someone that they want to hang out with on the weekend. So that's what we do. We take them out, and we're buddies, and we IM with them during the day, and we send them pictures of, hey, you know, this Alaska shoot was awesome for us, because we contacted all of our clients the way we contacted our friends and our family. And we're like, check out this amazing picture of me with a bald eagle flying behind me, and I'm on a dog sled. And they thought that was so cool, and at the same time we're reminding them, hey, Discovery just sent us to Alaska for 2 weeks. We're that amazing. So that kind of stuff is really how you remind them who you are and what you're doing, and then hopefully the word spreads, because all these networks are related. I mean, Discovery Communications owns Discovery Channel, TLC, Discovery Health, Discovery Times, Animal Planet, all those are under one, and they all work in the same building, and they all have the same phone numbers, and so they're all around. So once you get in, same thing, Scripps is Food TV, or Food Network, HGTV, Fine Living, all those. So once you can get into one of those, and you do a good job, the word spreads.
Thank you.
Yeah, yes.
For these promos or commercials, or what are you usually shooting? Are you usually shooting film or digitally? Or?
All of these, actually, no, the one lit up, Trading Spaces Home Depot was shot on film because that's a few years old. Everything else was shot on HD. Yeah, everything else was shot on DVC Pro HD using the VariCam. That's what we generally shot on. We're starting to work with the Red, which has been around for a couple years, but it's got some crazy workflow issues in the post side that a lot of people had a hard time with, so we've let other people deal with it, figure it out, and now that it's kind of becoming a little more streamlined, we're trying it out, which is also digital, but it's much better quality than the DVC Pro HD, and it's much closer to film, so that's nicer. Film, honestly, when very few people are shooting on film anymore. I mean, the commercials are, but it's very rare. When I started, everything we were shooting on was film. And now it's the HD. It's a bit more cost effective, but not much. Honestly, what I like about it is it saves us a lot of time. I can shoot and that night be editing, whereas with film, you have to go into the transfer and color correct and all that, and it takes a couple days, whereas now I can deliver something the same day that I would have received the film. And I think that's a huge thing for us, especially in broadcast, when you sometimes have 3 days to make a spot, whereas in the commercial world, when they're using film, they're working on something for months and months. Yeah.
Because you're such a small shop, are you doing everything? Are you writing, shooting? Can you address that?
Yeah.
Your talent?
Yeah. We have 5 people on staff. Tom was asking if we have designers or things. We, right now, as a small company, really focus on writing because we think that's our strong point. Anyone can shoot something. Obviously, there's people that are better than others, but anyone can shoot something. There's a ton of design shops that do amazing design. Designers, I mean, a good designer is fabulous, but there's a ton of good designers. But writing is something that people are not paying any attention to. So that's what we base, you know, we start with our concepting, start with our writing, and from there, then we decide what something's gonna look like. So we bring in a designer then for that. So we have, like I said, staff is more the creative concepting, writing, and then we bring in freelance designers once a concept is more established and we need to figure out what the look is for it. We'll bring in freelance editors for our editing. We have edit suites, but we don't have enough work going all the time to have one fully employed. And also, I like, the company I was at before, we had 3 editors on staff all the time. And they were fantastic, but people have a certain style, and so everything starts to look the same. I think a lot of us, you know companies or seeing things, you know someone's look, and we really like we like to have our through line being that's different, that's weird looking, but we don't want everything to look the same. So I like the fact that we bring in a bunch of different freelancers and we can bring in the right person for the right job and not just make someone kind of fit our vision. Does that answer your question?
No, it's good to hear that variety is important.
It's very important to us. We don't think it is to many people. We're really pushing it. We've actually been talking about doing some workshops at our office to junior promo producers and the networks and teaching them how to write. Because like I said, we do this concepting and a lot of times they'll just sit down and start writing a script. And you don't know what you're writing about. And it's so easy in 30 seconds. You think, oh, I'll just bust out a 30-second script. But if you do that, it's going to be really flat and really boring. Nothing anyone's interested in.
Yes. Is there a certain company that you'd like to do a project for that you haven't worked with yet?
That's a good question. We'd love to do something with Food Network. We've been talking about that. We haven't gotten quite in there yet. It's funny, in school I always said I wanted to work for Discovery. I just thought they had great programming, great branding, and the fact that we're with all the Discovery channels is so awesome. That was really a blessing for me. But I would say probably Food Network. And it's interesting, we're really in the cable world. That's what we do. We've been asked to do some pitching for ABC, and we've had ABC call us a couple times for projects that then didn't turn out. And that's really exciting to us. It's like, oh, it's the big guys. But at the same time, we remember when we get so close and we get all wrapped up, we think, there's a reason we're doing cable. We kind of chose to focus on it because there is a little more flexibility, there's a little more creativity, there's not as many layers of approval, not as many people worried about what these decisions are going to do. It's a little more renegade, if you will, and I do like that about cable. So we are excited about the idea of working with the big network, because at the same time it's a little scary because you see them as a little bit of golden handcuffs, you know?
I know the networks and probably the cable channels, they have their own promo departments, but
Yes.
there are times when they want to outsource it to you all. What would be the motivation for outsourcing?
Outsourcing, absolutely. There's a lot of networks. They all have their promo in-house teams, and some of them are bigger than others. One, to go back to your question, the network would love to do something for HBO. Chances of that happening are slim because they have an insanely amazing promo team in-house, and they don't shoot much. And you'll see almost all of their promos, they're amazing, and yet they're out of footage from their shows. It's very interesting. They shoot very little. So a lot of times I think the reason they go out of house is either they're just too busy, they just have too much of a workload, or they need new ideas. They need something really strong. That's why a lot of the launch campaigns will come to companies like ours, because it's their big push. They really need to get people on air, and they think these people, for the same reason I said we don't question them on their knowledge of their network, they're working on this brand every day, all day long, all year long. And they get a little worn out and dried up of ideas, so they come to us for some rejuvenation. Tom, do I see you were about this?
Yeah, over lunch you mentioned a project that never actually aired, but you keep on your demo reel as a failure, but it's very successful. You want to talk a little bit about that one?
About Tampy? The talking tampon. a high point in our career. Very interesting. It was another co-branded spot. It was interesting though, and I didn't get into this with you. There was actually no branding on it for anyone. It was for Spike TV, and it was to promote a birth control pill made by this pharmaceutical company, Bar Pharma. And the concept, and this sadly was not one we came up with. They came to us with this concept. It was Tampy, the talking tampon, was PSA. Basically him talking to the viewers about how hard his life is, what a horrible life it is, how many of his brothers are killed every year. And basically save the tampons was the idea. And then they sold it to Bar Pharma as, here's Tampy, and then in the same commercial break, but not adjacent to, would be a commercial for this birth control pill. And people would connect the two. And we were like, really? You really sold this, and you're going to pay us for this? And they said, yeah, okay, we'll make Tampy. So we got a studio, and we did the full backdrop, and director's chair, and Tampy was about this big, and we had a girl behind we cut a hole in the backdrop, and she was Tampy, the talking tampon, and we did a full, he sounded like Mr. Hanky, which I'm not sure. The writer from Spike was Tampy's voice. And it was hilarious. My favorite part was sending our PA on the train with Tampy to return him to Spike after the shoot. He was so upset. Even though we covered him up, he was convinced everyone knew he was carrying a 3-foot tampon on him. So the whole time we were like, I cannot believe that you, like, this is awesome, but I really don't believe that this is going to air. And of course, once it was finally made and delivered, someone, I don't know who, whether it was on the Spike side or the Bar Pharma side, cut it and said, no, this isn't going to air. And we were sad because it's no fun. We worked on something and then it doesn't air. And then it was quiet for about 6-8 months. And then we went to our annual promo conference and it was showed in a session that we weren't at, but people started talking about it. Oh my gosh, did you see that tampon spot? We were like, Tampy? We made that. And we had hidden Tampy away after the delivery. We were like, okay, and then we went to a meeting at True TV, which used to be Court TV. We were talking to our friends, and we said something. I think we were telling funny stories when we mentioned Tampy, and they were like, wait, you made Tampy? We just watched that this morning in a company meeting. And we were like, what are you talking about? Apparently, they do weekly meetings with their staff and show, like, new things going on in the industry. I'm not sure why I was on there, because at that point it was about a year old, but it was more just like, look at this crazy risk these people were about to take. So since then, we've put it on our reel. Tampy's everywhere because everyone seems to think we're so great because we made him. But so that's interesting. It worked out really well for us, just for people to see kind of a different campaign that people were willing to do. And who knows what it would have done on air. It was very odd. Like I said, there was no branding. Like on all of these, you see, it ends with a bug of the network, brought to, only on TLC or, Discovery Channel. You always see the logo. There was nothing. It ended with this it was just a long pull out of Tampy talking, and then it ended with just a little chime, like the did you know, and then it was over. There was nothing, which I thought was pretty awesome, because people usually aren't willing to take that risk, but for whatever reason, I'll never know it didn't air. There's many reasons that it shouldn't have, though. From the network side, I think it should have, but yes.
Where did the name Wee Beastie come from?
It's from a Robert Burns poem. It's actually the same poem that Of Mice and Men came from. It actually sounds better when my business partner tells it, because he's Scottish, which explains why we have a Robert Burns poem reference. But the line is, "Oh, wee sleekit, cowering timorous beastie." And then it goes on further, and I don't know the rest. But our idea was Wee Beastie. Wee Beasties are basically those nuggets that get stuck in your head before you have the idea. For me, they happen, and I've never considered myself a creative person. I'm the person that does all the paperwork and stuff at work. I get involved in everything, but I'm not, but I still have those at night. I go to bed, and all of a sudden I think of something, and I don't even know what it is, but it starts growing into something else, or something else, just that spark that you have right before you start formulating an idea. We call those Wee Beasties, and the domain name was available.
You were saying how, when you try to write the script right away, it usually doesn't work out and it's flat. So when do you decide that it's time to actually put all the, concepts, or choose the concept and actually write the script for it?
We write the script once our client has decided upon a concept.
Okay.
Once they've said, okay, that's the one. And usually to get to that point, we'll have gone through at least 2 rounds of presenting them concepts.
Okay.
So at that point, we've dug into it pretty deep. So once that's agreed upon, a contracts are signed, then we start writing. But it's generally at least 2, maybe 3 rounds of digging deeper into the concept.
Okay.
Yeah. I have no idea how you would write something longer than 3 minutes. I can't. I don't know how people write movies. It's insane. Yeah.
What's the average time that it takes to go from an idea to the actual finished product? I'm sure it varies, but
That's one of the things I love about what we do, because again, like you said, it varies, but I would say on the whole, 2 months. Which, Alaska Week was obviously much longer, but most of what we do is about 2 months, which is fantastic. It means that you're doing new things all the time. If anything does become that nightmare project, there's a light at the end of the tunnel always, and ultimately it has to be finished when it goes on air. Every now and then they can push things a couple days, but usually speaking, especially with co-branded stuff, I mean, this advertiser has paid for this to be on starting this night, and it's going to be on air, and once it's on air, you're done. So yeah, about 2 months.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Dave.
Okay. How much time would you say you spend on the business side as opposed to production?
Myself personally, I probably, it depends on how busy we are. I try and keep it 50-50. I would say 50-50. I personally, as a business owner, would like to be able to spend more time on my business. But it's a good thing if I can't, if I'm having to help in production so much, because that means we're incredibly busy. But I would say 50-50. My business partner would rather, his is definitely more on production, I would say, also because I'm his partner and I don't think he does enough. No, I'd say his is probably more like 70-30, and I really push that because he's the creative director. I want him working on the projects, and I could be dealing with contracts and W-9s and all that kind of junk and bookkeeping, and I could do that.
What are some of the pros and cons of owning your own business?
It's interesting. I don't think it's hard. I don't think I've ever really had a boss, like a real boss. So I think I'm lacking that, oh, it's so amazing that I don't have a boss feeling. I mean, I have the production company I was at before this. There wasn't an official person over me because it was such a small group that we all kind of worked together. But it is very nice to, in a way, create your own schedule, to be able to have the flexibility to leave today and come here, and I didn't, have to fill out, I'm taking this day off. At the same time, it never stops. So right now I know I have a bunch of emails on my phone that I have to check and get back to people because it could be a new project or a client making a last minute change. And so there is never a cutoff, which I do regret not being able to ever shut down and close off because it matters too much. So that's hard. I also love that we can do the projects that we want to do. We definitely do take work sometimes because we need to. We're not going to just turn anything down. But ultimately, if we don't feel like something's the right fit, we can absolutely tell people, no, that's not right for us. And that's a very empowering feeling.
Where do you see the company in 5 years?
Where do we see ourselves in 5 years? We don't want to grow much bigger. I would say max 10 people on staff. A big downfall of a lot of production companies are growing too big for their britches and not being able to, just cover their overhead. A ton of production companies go down once they start hiring a bunch of staff and a bunch of equipment. Especially with what we do, we don't get accounts that last for a year. I have no idea what our sales are for June. I mean, we get a project in 2 months and it's over. So there's not a lot of forecasting. So for that reason, it's not good to bring on a lot of people. Also, I don't feel like we don't want to grow too big to not ever know what's going on. It's important for Chris and I to be extremely involved in the work, not as micromanagers, but as our clients hire us. They hire Chris and I and our company, and we want them to feel like we are involved in every project that they hire us for, and that we're not handing them over to the B team, which happens so often in commercial agencies. A smaller brand will come in and talk to the big creative directors, and then suddenly they're dealing with the C team, which isn't bad at all, but that's all their budget affords them, and we don't ever want to do that to our clients. So I would say we really like this co-branded stuff. We've talked about trying to work more into the commercial side. I'm not interested in that personally. So we'll see. My business partner's a bit interested in directing more things, so we'll see what he wants to do. But I really like this co-branded stuff, and I like that we're kind of emerging as the experts in that field, so to say.
For our production students who might be interested in a freelance career, what do you look for in a freelancer? I assume you bring on a variety of people for
Absolutely.
projects. What do you look for?
Definitely first we look at their reel, obviously. But one thing that I found is very important that a lot of people miss is being an expert in something. It's something that we also take into consideration with ourselves. You have to brand yourself. If I'm looking for an editor and he sends me an email or we talk or what have you, or his reel, and says, yeah, I'm an editor, but I also do sound, and I also shoot, and I can direct, and I can do whatever you want, I'm not going to hire them for any of those jobs, because I want someone that's the best at editing commercials. I want someone that's best at comedy editing. And if you're doing all of those things, you're not the best at any of them. And I think that that's very important. I instantly just don't look at those things when I hear from someone that can do everything, for the same reason we don't go to our networks and say, yeah, we can make your promos, or we can make you a show, or I'll make you a corporate video, or we could probably make some radio spots for you. They're gonna be like, who are you? That's not what I want the best. So I think really establishing yourself that this is what I do. I specialize in design, After Effects, what have you. And then a really strong reel. We try not to, a lot of people look for something on a reel that's exactly like what they're trying to do. So that's famous in the advertising agency. I need a director that works with babies, with toy cars that are red, and they will only work with someone that has that on their reel. And we try very hard to say, okay, to push our designers and find a designer that we love their reel, but it may not have anything that looks like what we're trying to do, because we think that pushes them even further to really think outside of where they're comfortable and create something new and different. And really, you have to have a website. I want to Google you. I don't want to look at a disc. I want to Google you and look at the website. Receiving a reel is nonsense, I think.
Is that unique to your company, or do you think the industry is going that way? The reason I ask is I used to work in pre-press, and it was a big company, and we had people who were experts in scanning, and we had the Photoshop experts, and we had the assembly, so it was all different teams, and it made a difference because we were specialists in each of our groups instead of generalists.
I think that's all over the place. Absolutely, I don't want to go.
They went away for a while. They wanted generalists for a while.
Well, I think a lot of networks do. You hear about predators. And that's just them not wanting to hire two people. They want someone to do the job of two people. You can call them a predator, that's great, but I don't think predator is going to edit something as wonderful as a great editor that may be a space cadet and can't produce anything. And I think the generalization has just been created by budget cuts. But for the same reason, I don't want to have someone cut my hair that also sells shoes or whatever. I want someone that knows how to cut hair, and that's what they do. They don't on the side also, sell homes or whatever. I think it's true in any field.
A couple of years ago, I was out at Electronic Arts and I was talking to them with a bunch of students, and I asked them about people in the game industry and what they looked for. They said what they didn't look for is they didn't want somebody who sent in a reel that had 3D modeling and animation on it. They said they throw them away immediately.
That makes sense.
If somebody sends in modeling, they look out. If they send in animating, they look out. If they send in both of them, they throw it away. For the exact same reason, they want the expert down to that micro level.
That makes total sense. Absolutely.
So what would your advice be for somebody getting out of college to develop, expertise in a certain area when, they may not have a lot of experience, but they have a sense of what they're most interested in doing in production, but they need to eat, and they'll take anything.
I think what I did, I thought it was brilliant. Get a position at a small company where you can do anything, at a small company that really relies on you. You're not just going to get the mail. Someone that needs someone to come in and work their butt off. And if you do that, you can do whatever else you want. I only talked to companies that, it was all admin jobs or front desk or whatever, but they said, well, we have editing going on all night, every night, or we have this going on, and you're welcome to stay and work with these guys, and it may take a lot of extra hours, but I think getting into a small production company where you can get your hands on equipment and talk to people, but it takes a while, and one thing that I think is very important is that you go in and you do the job you've been hired for, even if it's stupid and you think it's stupid, that's your job, and do it, and don't be offended by it, and then put in the extra work after hours, or if it's slow or what have you feel it out and work with the other people. But I think going in and just assuming, well, I should be editing stuff that goes on air is horrible, and that's your first step out the door at that place. But I think if you put in your time, and at a company that will listen to you, not one that you can't touch anything for 2 years, that's nonsense. But I think small companies need hard workers, and if you go in there and work hard, you can get your hands on just about anything, and then from there kind of figure out what works for you and what speaks to you.
Can you talk about the New York market versus the West Coast?
I haven't worked in LA full time, so I can't say exactly. I'm from Southern California, but that by no means makes me an expert because I left when I was 17. I think from my point of view, the New York side on the whole seems on the more business end of things. I know a lot more production people that went out to LA. That's not to say there isn't production going on in New York, but it seems like a lot more of the freelance PAs, guys working into becoming ADs or art. A lot of those people went to LA and were keeping themselves very busy. It seemed like the more of us that were going to New York were looking for more of those staff positions in production companies or what have you. And that's a definitely generalization, but to me, in my mind, it's more staff office positions. That's not saying that you don't go out and shoot. I have an office position, but I'm out shooting 4 times a month sometimes. But the people that are on set every single day, I feel like there's more of those out in LA than in New York.
Okay, 2-part question. When you first went to New York, where did you stay? And the second, I know the answer to this one. And the second question is, how did you move from the one company and create Wee Beastie?
Okay. First, when I first moved to New York, I was on that fellowship. They housed me in a dorm for 2 months, and then I was set free. And I didn't really know New York outside of my small fellowship because we had been so busy. We basically did everything that was planned for us, and I didn't feel very comfortable. I'd never been to New York before. I went there for the internship, and so I found. I'm such a dork for saying this, but it was really a lifesaver for me. It was run by the Salvation Army. It was like a dorm for women, no boys allowed inside. And I lived there for my first year, and you get your own room, and I shared a bathroom with one other girl, and there was a cafeteria downstairs. And I lived in possibly on the best address I will ever live in my life. I was on Gramercy Park with a key to the park. It was fabulous, but I lived in this silly dorm. But it gave me a chance. I had cheap rent with food included, and I wasn't making any money, so it allowed me to survive and live in Manhattan and get my footing until I was able to feel more comfortable in the city and make a right decision instead of signing a lease on some rat-infested apartment, way out in Greenpoint or something like that. So, and Tom thought everyone thought it was so funny. They said I lived in a convent. My parents liked it, but it was a really good experience. It's actually though since been sold off to condos, of course, so it doesn't exist anymore. But a few of them do exist in the city, and those are, and I think they have male ones too. Those are a really, really, really good option for people first moving into the city without a lot of money and without much knowledge. It's just a good kind of in between thing. So I recommend that. And then. Transition from the company I was at before, basically it was a company that was doing pretty much exactly what we're doing here. Not quite as much shooting, but similar kind of work. Who's now my business partner, he came to us, to the company I was at after I'd been there about 2 years, and he really brought in shoots. We weren't shooting that much up until he came in. He came in because he wanted to be a director, and he said, I'm gonna shoot stuff. He came from the network side, brought some contacts with him, started bringing in some work, and no one else in the company was that interested in shooting. So he and I paired up, and really for 2 years worked as a team on all the same projects together. No one else in the company really was that involved in them, and we just shot as often as we could. And that's how I learned how to shoot in the city and what it takes. And then the company I was at rebranded, got a new president in, and really kind of refocused what they were wanting to do and moved more towards those topical promos, like I was saying, tonight on 24, and there's cuts of the show and voiceover, which are huge money-making accounts. But if you're looking for creative work, it's not that exciting. The most creative thing of it, I think, is having to come up with a new idea every night for however many weeks it is. But it becomes factory work, and that's what they were moving towards, which I understand as a business model. But we didn't want to do that kind of work, and they were basically, firing our clients, saying, "Oh no, we're not going to do that kind of work. Oh, it's a shoot. We won't make the percentage we want," and sending them away. Chris and I sat down at lunch one day and said, "This is nonsense. This is the work that we want to do is now available. Let's take it." And so we did, and we also felt like it was then not quite as deceptive as just leaving and taking clients. They were actually clients that were being thrown in the wind that we just snatched up and took with us to our new company.
Any other questions? John?
Yeah.
Oh,
What advice would you have for someone with a music composition background?
That's actually something I realized I hadn't talked about. That's a huge thing to us. The problem is it's often one of the first things cut out of our budgets. A lot of the networks find music as a extra. It's an added bonus if you have the extra money. And I would think, especially as someone in the music field, you would be completely against that. And ourselves as creatives, we acknowledge how much music can drive a project. The Table for 12 spot, actually I'm going to play it again because this was a big battle that we had. Our client that hired us for this amazing girl, and we told her point blank, we said, this is going to need original music. It will be so great if we can have someone compose a song. And we said, don't put any, they gave us this script that was all about John and Kate and kids and laundry, and we were like, that's horrible, cut it all out and just let the music tell the story. And we fought and fought and fought. And we got it actually on air for, I think, 2 nights with just the music, with just the very end tag, like, tune in. And then the 3rd night we were watching and we saw they had added the giant script over us, which broke our heart, but it is their air. But watch this again, this is a great song that we had a guy that we love, who, if you're interested in that, I'll give you his contact information because I think he does amazing, amazing work.
This house, we don't always laugh and smile. Our home, find a way to make it our place. There's lots of us, it's true. Our place in the middle of the sunshine. This house, we'll figure out a way. Our home, try to make the day count.
The premiere of Table for 12, following the season finale of John and Kate Plus 8. Monday, March 23rd at 10, only on TLC.
I'll tell you, you hear that song 3 times and you sing it. We were singing it for 3 weeks in my office, nonstop. People at TLC, we heard my client was like, I am me. She was like, oh my gosh, my boss just walked down the hallway singing the song under his breath. He got stuck. And we know that that's a huge, huge way to grab viewers is with songs. How often do you get a song stuck in your head and it's so annoying, but it makes you remember something? And if it's connected with something as hopefully heartwarming as that, you actually like the memory. But I think it's very important in telling stories. But the problem is it is definitely, to be honest, one of the first things people cut out of our budgets. We try our hardest to put them in, but a lot of times the price of a music composition could be as much as 10% of our whole budget, which is just impossible. But we fight for it as much as possible. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting before with you were saying you want to find like the specific when you're hiring. Everything that I've ever been told is like you have to be able to do everything and then do that is the best, in addition to being able to be an all-around sound designer, all that, because you're never going to make enough money just
well, I
doing
think
music.
as far as within sound, within things like that, like what I said, I want to, for design, I want to, I'm hiring someone to do After Effects. I also want them to be an illustrator. I want them to be able to be a painter. I want them to do other things. If they know other programs, that's okay. It's someone that if you said, I do sound design, and I also could shoot your video for you, I would be like, no. There's a lot of crossover between composition and mixing and stuff. We actually, David, who designed that for us, also mixed the Alaska Week stuff for us. He's mixing it right now. So there is, within that field, and a lot of fields, there's those very compartmentalized things that it is good to be able to do all of those. And I don't know enough about sound to actually know technically how it all interacts, but I would assume to be able to write and deliver a great piece, you also need to know how to mix and those other things. So I think that's important. But we never have hired David to mix anything before. He was cheaper to do it than going to the audio mix house because he isn't, in our mind, the expert. So it was more of we have a smaller budget, can you help us out with this? And so he did. So in that case, if we're just looking to mix, we would never go to him, but it was fresh in our minds, we'd been working with him, and it was lower budget. Yes, Tom?
I'm just thinking over the years, the number of music-oriented designers that I've had. Mark Carlton, who Monica met a couple of years ago, he was a music guy, but he was hell-bent on the game industry. And he'd been advised that he should be able to do film and television and advertising, and he basically said, hell no. And so he spent a year and a half not getting much work, getting laid off, getting fired. But just before Christmas, he was hired to set up the sound studio for Buzzcat Studios in Iowa by Activision. I mean, it took him a while, but he got it. And Veronica Gonzalez, who's a lead designer at Electronic Arts, she's sound and music performance. She was hired into Electronic Arts because she was the best musician that they could get. And I think it may be more important for you to decide what medium you work in and understand how music really works in film, really works in TV, and really works in games. Because I think the ones that say, everyone I've had who says they can do television, film, and games, none of them are working in those industries doing music. But the ones who say they work in one industry, they're working in those industries.
That makes sense.
It's good, but
this is kind of like a question more on the generalist thing. I'm a media production major, so I'm doing the Final Cut program, but my minor is interactive design. So I'm doing like all the Adobe programs, and hopefully with the right classes I'll be able to use Maya in the next semester. But when it comes to a job and like juggling all the programs, which ones do you want to be the best at? Or do you have to know that in your head and pursue just knowing one program over the other because it gives you a better chance of getting work? Or do you understand the question?
Yeah, I think so. I think once you get out and are working, right when you leave school, you're not going to go and say, I'm the best editor there is, hire me. And that's not who we're going to hire, because obviously right out of school you're still learning, you have to get that experience. So I don't think there's a problem in your first few years, especially out of undergraduate, to be trying a bunch of different things and you know, experiment with things. I can do this, let me try these things. I think what you like the most and are best at will raise out of that. So if you find you're enjoying editing more, you're going to focus more on that than After Effects, or vice versa. So I think it's more of a natural progression, but at some point you have to tell yourself, I need to make a decision. What am I? Am I a designer or am I an editor? And not to say having additional skills hurt you, because it doesn't. We love when we have a great editor in that also knows some about After Effects, because a lot of times there's crossover and we have to have our designers and our editors working together, and if they know a bit about what each other's doing, that's a huge, huge help. So it's definitely good to know these other programs, but to be the expert and to sell yourself as an editor, you should be an editor or a designer. That's more what it is. And I think your last semester of school, you're not going to decide, okay, I'm an editor. Some people might, but I don't think you necessarily have to at that moment. It's if you don't know, it's because you haven't decided yet. You need a little more experience. But eventually, I think you have to decide, you know, what am I going to do? I had a moment at my last company in my career where, you know, they basically sat me down and said, okay, are you going to focus on editing or producing? Because you can play around as much as you do, but what is it that you want to do? I said, I want to produce. I just done. And, you know, I could have changed my mind or what have you. It's not like they were, you know, decide or leave, but they kind of took me under the wing and said, what are you? Make a decision, because you can't just play around forever.
Okay.
I guess I'll ask the last question. What's the most important thing you think you learned in college?
The most important thing I learned in college, I think networking, honestly. I think it was networking. I think it was learning to speak to my professors and learning how to ask them questions and be involved in what I'm learning. Staying in touch, I think it really was networking and relationships, and when people would come in and talk, you know, learn how to speak to them and how to stay in touch with them, appropriate ways to contact people afterwards, appropriate ways to stay in touch with professors or visiting lecturers or what have you, because I think that's what's most important to me in my career. It's not theory, even though theory is always great. It's how can I stay in touch with someone, leave an effect, but do it appropriately, because there's many inappropriate ways that people can really bug you. Get that all the time. You need to know what's an interesting and appropriate way to contact someone and stay in touch. And I think I learned that in college from learning how to deal with office hours and speak to my professors and go for help. My IRTS application, I have no doubt there's no way I would have gotten that if I hadn't spent the time I did with my professors working on it. I spent, I think, 2 sessions with Tom, I think 3 sessions with another professor, just going over my application, editing it, then picking out, this is a good story, this isn't, really helping me formulate that, and learning when someone's an expert at something and listening to them, and learning how to take criticism and information from them, because it's very easy to think that you're the best at everything, and no one is. And I think that's important in college, to learn who's better at things than you, how to stay in touch with them, and how to use them in a good way, not in a negative way in the future.
Okay, I think that's a great note to end on. Why don't you join me in thanking Monica for coming out.